We ready for some Message Board Maniacs?
Let's hop into it.
Let's get after it.
Message Board Maniacs, the segment where we dive into some college football message boards the Saturday after these games have happened on Saturday. And we look at some of the craziest fans, some of the craziest comments. We see how these fans are doing after some of these games this weekend. We got two teams.
Not so good.
Once again, we've got two fan bases here to talk about. We've got USC and we've got UCF. It was a weekend full of comebacks in college football, full of comebacks in the NFL, but full of comebacks in football in general. We're going to talk about USC first, because as much as USC still managed to pull that game out, there was a lot of major concern out of that fan base after that one, and justifiably so. The Trojans nearly blew a 34-7 lead to Colorado. That 34-7 lead was solidified with 7 minutes and 50-some seconds, I believe, left in the third quarter. You can pretty much just put that one to bed at that point, but they didn't. USC got outrushed by a team who thus far this season have ran for 55 yards, 58 yards, 70 yards, and 40 yards. They got outrushed by that team by 100 yards, 193 to 95 on the ground. They gave up nearly 600 yards to Colorado when they were up 34-7. Colorado had almost no offense produced at that point in the game, so they probably put up about 390 yards in one quarter to almost come back and win this game.
Yeah, USC kind of went to sleep. They're just like, yeah, we've got this game in the bag, and they just kind of rolled over. Scary to see.
And you can't do that in college football to be a top team. To be a good team, you have to stay on top of them and destroy them.
So there's a fun one. Do we still think USC is a legitimate contender?
I still think they are. I think this Colorado team kind of had that mentality. I think Coach Prime kind of has instilled it in them that we're not getting blown out again like we did against Oregon, and
technically they did.
Yeah, and they kind of felt that starting to happen again with that USC team, and they're just like, this isn't happening. This isn't Colorado football. And then, I mean, they came out of the locker room a little shaky, and then they kind of picked it up. And I think that offense is too good to be contained. I think it's super hard to contain that kind of offense for 4 quarters. Yeah. I think Oregon's arguably the best team in the country, and I think USC needs to figure out some defensive things, but I'm not completely writing them off. Writing them off.
Of course, it's a Lincoln Riley team.
I was gonna say this is not abnormal for a Lincoln Riley team. It's the same old for him as well. At Oklahoma, it was always highest rush rate in college football. A lot of sacks, big hitters, but absolutely zero after that. Coverage is terrible. Their secondary doesn't know how to hit. They can't create turnovers. This defense they melt like butter once you get after that first half, just like Lincoln Riley's teams always have. They melt to the run game. They get torched in their secondary. It's Alex Grinch has been his defensive coordinator his entire career. This guy has for some reason failed his way to the top. You failed your way from Oklahoma to USC. You failed your way into constant playoff appearances. I just don't see why there's not a change, and I think that's where the change needs to be. I don't see how you can continue looking at your teams who can put up 50-plus points a game. Know that your problem is that your opponent is also putting up 50-plus, and you refuse to make that adjustment. I don't understand that at all.
I completely agree with you, 100%. Like you're telling me you can't just look at your defense straight in the face and just be like, "Hey guys, you're gonna suck." Like what? Like
adjustments have to be made.
To be a little bit of devil's advocate for Colorado, they have their rush game. I think it's a lot better than what we've seen this season. And I think this week showed that their rush offense can be significantly better. Because, they've played some pretty solid teams on the Russian defensive side. Yeah. Nebraska, they don't have a lot going for them, but their rush defense has always been good. TCU week 1, I think their rush defense is pretty solid. Obviously,
one of
Oregon,
the best in college football. TCU's.
Yeah, and then obviously Oregon, and I can't think of the other team or Colorado State. They obviously have a pretty solid rush defense, and I think this is the first time we've seen them against
terrible
rush
defense.
Against a terrible rush defense, but against a not top, like I don't know statistics off the top of my head, but like I'd say top 50 rush defense in the country. So I think if they play the lower end of the rush defenses, they can have these kind of games consistently.
Yeah, I think Colorado, if they could open up holes in the run game, they could have one of the best run games in the country.
Yeah, they've got the talent there.
They've got a lot of talent in that backfield. At the same time, we'll be pretty quick on Colorado here because they're not the focus. But at the same time, they need to find a way to get that backfield just plays in space. Why are you trying to run the ball? If your offensive line sucks, why are you trying to run the ball? That team tries to go vertical all game, every game, that's their play style. They're going to try to beat you over the top. Get your running backs open in space and make some of those shorter plays if your run game is non-existent. But either way,
the check down is never a bad thing when you can get 5 yards on first down.
They almost never hit it.
Facts.
USC
5-6 yards on first down is huge.
USC fans have hit desperation. Coach Ed Orgeron, former coach of LSU. I don't remember where he coached after that. They have called for him to come in and assistant coach the defense.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he talked about it on a talk show a while back, and USC fans are now calling his name. I don't know about that one. Ed O's had his controversies in college football. I don't know if USC quite wants that, but they're calling his name. It was a pretty popular comment on the subreddits there. I think you go out of house. I think you get rid of Alex Grinch. I don't think Ed O is your best option. Let's talk UCF fans. UCF fans, for the first time since they joined the Big 12, got a little bit humbled this weekend. They're all of a sudden going from saying we're going to crush your conference to saying, you know what, 6-6 might be the best outcome here. They also blew a massive lead. Theme here, 35-7 lead to Baylor with 7 minutes left to go in the third, almost identical to that USC game. A mix of 2 late game interceptions in opportune areas of the field. Poor UCF clock management. You've got 22 minutes left to kill in the game. Just run the clock out. Use your time. They didn't use any. Didn't even force Baylor to use any timeouts. Almost no clock management there whatsoever. Baylor was able to get back in that game pretty quick. Yikes for UCF. The new kids on the block are still doing terrible in the Big 12.
New kids on the block just got kicked off.
Yeah, it's not looking good.
I had a lot of high hopes for this UCF team going into this game.
It was looking great
because obviously they had played some pretty solid ball up to that point. They had lost, I think, 1 game to a good team. I don't remember, but I was like, Baylor's not anything this year. But when you do what UCF did in that game to basically sabotage themselves, you got to look at it like, damn.
I've got an NIL question here. Going forward for UCF, you're in a massive market with a big opportunity. You're in the Big 12. You're recruiting out of Florida. Is Gus Malzahn the guy at head coach going forward for UCF that is going to get the whole NIL thing done? Because he has almost zero interest in schmoozing the donors. He has almost zero interest in getting his players those deals. He has almost zero interest in any kind of spotlight whatsoever. Is he going to use this system of college football, or is he going to stick to tradition? And if that's the case, does UCF have any shot competing in the new Big 12?
You've got to adapt. In football, you can't ever stay the same and be stagnant because it's a constant. That's the lovely thing about sports is it's constantly changing.
Yeah.
And at some point you gotta figure out either I have to do this or I can't do my job well enough. And if he can't get to the point where he's like, I'll do the NILs and I'll start reaching out and getting the money people are wanting, then I mean he needs out of there. you saw how well it's working for, Coach Prime, not to go back to Colorado, but you saw how well that worked when he was like, hey, here's your money, come play for me.
Yeah, literally.
And, it's also Coach Prime, so he has
here's
that.
your Ferraris and Lamborghinis and bags, and come play for Prime. Yep.
Why not? Like, get your money.
You got to be able to coach it. You got to be able to coach it at the same time. That's why Dion is one of one, because he can do all that. He can flash money at you, but he can also turn you into a family and teach you how to play football.
Yep.
College coaches need to just understand that it's more about brotherhood.
I'm gonna make
more about.
I'm gonna make a broad
family aspect.
I'm gonna make a broad statement here.
Yeah.
I don't think a lot of these old head coaches, and I don't want to attack age here. That's not what I'm trying to do. But I don't think a lot of these older generation head coaches have any shot in the new landscape of college football. Genius minds like Nick Saban, they're going to know how to manipulate it. They're going to do fine. Minds like Gus Malzahn, minds like Brian Kelly, even. A lot of those older guys, I don't think they're going to be around much longer. I don't think guys like Chip Kelly are going to be around much longer. You're going to see some very promising coaches more than likely retire a lot earlier than you thought they would have.
Yeah.
You're going to see
it. I think it's a little easier for the guys like Nick Saban to get, even though he doesn't necessarily do the NIL thing, but it's still Alabama. And I feel like at the end of the day, they have such a rich history that people are going to be like, I want to go play for that guy. I want to play for Nick Saban. I may not be getting 1.2 mil, but
you're still getting a bag.
800,000.
Yeah.
I'm going to be getting 20 million when I get drafted top 5.
There you go.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He's got the history to be able to be like, this is what I've done with these guys who are literally nobody's coming in.
See my trophy case?
I turn them into. Yeah, he's just going to be like this. That's all he's got to do.
Tom Brady recruiting tactics.
There's a list.
Exactly.
There's a list. He could go down a giant list. Say, here's all the Alabama players that are in the National Football League.
Hey, you're a 4-star quarterback. Yeah, let's look at. We got Jalen Hurts, Tua. We got, and he can just go on.
And he can get you a bag.